Hey you, I got this really cool app called ScreenFlow. I'm recording this video today on. It's gonna allow me to take you through a few things on my Facebook feed over the years and a few websites and important YouTube channels that I want to show you to emphasize the topic of today's video, which is my vegan story. How I went from a kid struggling with gastrointestinal issues, debilitating pain, had to fly home from a vacation back in 2010. How I went from that to the type of person that essentially has no health problems and really hasn't had a major health issue in the last 2 or 3 years. How I went from a kid suffering from neck pain and plantar fasciitis, gastrointestinal GERD and acid reflux, and my transition through raw foods, through a bunch of different influences over the years, and how I think eating as raw as possible, a plant based, high carb vegan diet can really change your health outcome for your life. I want to take you first all the way back to an important time in my life. And wow, I'm going really far back here. This is all the way into high school and now college. Okay, so these pictures, there's my dad and my sister. This picture was taken in St. Martin. And granted, I was always a healthy looking guy, and I honestly don't look all that different today. So you could use that to say, oh, like what's the difference, you know? If you were healthy then and I'm healthy now, clearly it didn't make much of a difference. However, I might look healthy from the outside, but there was a lot going on in there that I didn't even fully know about. So actually, this is a good metaphor for this trip because I basically reached an edge of my health on this trip. Up until that point, I consumed the sad diet, the standard American fare, and I'm not criticizing, I'm not blaming anyone or anything for this. It's just simply what I was provided with my whole life and what I learned and kind of the influences of my life. These are the things that I ate, just typical foods that Americans eat, and a lot of meat and cheese, eggs and dairy. And I had no consciousness of how this was affecting my health. I went to the doctor growing up, and they'd ask how many glasses of milk you drink a day, and I'd brag about it. I'd say, oh, I drink one big glass of milk every day, and then the doctor would look at me and say, why don't you make it two? And that was kind of just the time period where I grew up, and plant-based and veganism wasn't pervasive at that point. And thank God it is today. But I reached a point where I was having severe stomach pain. I thought it was food poisoning or something. Maybe I drank some water. This was in St. Martin on a vacation with my dad and my sister and some of my dad's side of the family. And it was cool. I was going to get to spend some bonding time with cousins and different people that I didn't get to spend a lot of time with, on a regular basis, and sort of see them in a new light and get to chill in St. Martin on a tropical island. Look at that water. It's clear. Let me tell you, I went in the water one time, and I was in so much pain from this unknown stomach thing that I actually had to get put on a flight and fly back home. It was my first time ever flying alone. It was a little bit nerve-wracking. I was in intense pain. My mom sort of picked me up from the airport. I was disheveled. I was had low morale. I was like, what the fuck is going on with me? I'm a kid. I'm a young kid. I'm relatively healthy looking. I feel like I eat well, and this is just shit luck. Well, I get home, and I go to see a gastroenterologist specialist, in that field, and I had, one of those probes stuck down my throat. I think it's called like a upper endoscopy. It's like the opposite of a colonoscopy. They stick it up, instead of sticking it up that end, they stick it down this end. And, she saw minimal signs of anything like, like a bacterial infection or food poisoning. So that was kind of ruled out. What basically the consensus that was given to me was that I had early stages of GERD, which is gastro um, reflux, acid reflux disorder, and my stomach produces too much acid because it's triggered by things like alcohol and refined foods and junk food, and what I'd later come to figure out mostly was triggered by meat, cheese, eggs, and dairy, animal products. And how do I know that? Well, we'll get there. But the proof is in how I started to feel when I did transition to raw foods, which honestly didn't come for probably another 2 years from here. This was August 2010. And I didn't even start my trajectory onto plant foods until like 2012. But from then onward, basically, say Martin onward, the gastroenterologist, she basically didn't tell me I had to change all that much. She said, watch what you eat. Don't I don't think, I got a list of foods that were better than others, but it was pretty cliche. It was like, avoid acid fruits like pineapple and orange. Don't drink alcohol and coffee and just those cliche things, but no mention of animal products at all at this stage. So she prescribed me the pills, the pills to make it go away, and for the most part those pills worked, and I was good for a while there. I want to make sure I'm still recording here. I think we are. Okay. So let's move onward. This is college, blah, 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 blah. I was pretty much your average college student, went out every weekend, drank moderately to excessively at points, and I'll try to find a good picture to exemplify that. And yeah, drank sometimes with my buddies, and most weekends was drinking a lot of alcohol, and that wasn't, learned that was a big trigger for this acid reflux thing. But my consciousness around just the alignment of sustainability and ethics and health came when I joined this club, Eco Husky, and we were charged with mobilizing the campus to think more about the actions that their everyday choices have on the world and themselves and their own health and the health of our human biology and our Earth's ecology. So this is just like one example of something we would do. We would go around campus, get some volunteers, and we'd do a trash cleanup or a recycling bin. We go and test out, see if people were actually recycling, and empty the can and see like what percentage of recyclables were actually being thrown away, and just documented things like that. We'd weigh all the food waste at some of the campus events, and then kind of publicize that, like, look at what we're doing. So here's just another example of pretty average for a college student, but sort of excessive for the average person drinking. And yeah, here we're moving on. What's the next thing I want to move on to? Yeah. So I had a friend, and I can't find a picture of me and her. I wish I could, that'd be cool. But it was my friend Carly. I went over to her house one day, and she's got this machine out on the counter. It's got like 17 different parts. She's like opening cabinets to try to find the missing parts, and she gets out like a shit ton of vegetables. Like, honestly, more vegetables than I thought a human being could eat in a week. And she turns this thing on, loud as all hell, and she starts sticking cucumbers and shit in this thing, and out pours this liquid that, honestly, to me at that point looked like the last thing I wanted to ingest into my body. I probably would have made fun of it like the average person, because at that point, for breakfast I would have, that's a glass of milk and eggs. I pretty much was eating a heavy animal protein, animal nutrition diet, laden with inflammatory pus and blood and just hens periods and all these things that I just later come to realize that very, very rarely will I eat those things, and try to get off them entirely if I can eventually. But at this point in my life, right now, it's about 99%, 100% plant-based with a few, very few exceptions. And so she showed me juicing, and then I looked up who I want to show you, that one of my biggest influences. This is Dan McDonald, the Life Regenerator. This video is the first video I saw of him, and ever since then I was hooked on this juicing thing. I mean, look at it. Look at his skin tone, his positivity, just his true belief in this stuff really got me into it.
Carrots. Fill up your body with carrots, energize your life. Right. This is going to be carrot, apple, celery, parsley, and can you dig it? Right on.
That's just catchphrase, can you dig it? I love it. I became like sort of like a Life Regenerator junkie, and I don't even know why I went on YouTube for the first time, but I'm so glad I did, because I found that juicing can be fun and it can be a huge lifestyle hack. And when I started juicing and I started to eat more plant foods, and therefore, addition by subtraction by addition, I started adding in smoothies and juices, and therefore, the eggs started to disappear, the bacon started to disappear, the cold cuts started to fade away, and I added in carrots, kale, and celery, and tomatoes, and cucumbers, and parsley, and herbs, and aromatic spices, and just beautiful plant foods into my life, and everything started to change. Another guy I want to show you is Dr. Robert Cassar, and again, look at this guy. He just looks like pure radiant health, and I found his video, and I started ordering from his website, products. I started getting things like spirulina and chlorella and different things.
So we're going to talk a little bit about creatine today, and I really use it in my life.
Okay, so he's using creatine in this video.
Reach my 2-week period. Why? Because I'm getting weak. Ubiquitol and the
Okay, that's honestly not a good video of him, but I'm going to show you one of the first videos I saw of him. Yeah, I started drinking these liquids of vitality, blue-green algae and spirulina and different things mixed in with water, and I started to really uptake a lot more.
This is an overview of the 6 liquids of vitality. Remember, 6 liquids of vitality. And vitality really is important for your new life, because vitality makes everything better, doesn't it? It neutralizes your body and neutralizes the accumulated acids in your body. This one has also the color, has the vitamins, the superfood, and the color, phycocyanin. So you're drinking the color. Burgundy hibiscus water is number 3. Now,
I ordered things like
you can see
hibiscus water and the blue-green algae and
spirulina. It feeds your good bacteria in your stomach and makes.
I think that's agave.
To drink this, and you have to make this in glass because this stuff is powerful. It's full of
cider vinegar, all these awesome liquids I learned about, and just
now number 6 is the.
I learned about like the love molecule that's in chocolate and how different superfoods can really aid in your health. So you got Life Regenerator. I learned about just raw plant-based foods, and then I learned about liquids of vitality, hydration, superfoods through Dr. Cassar, and then I want to show you fully Raw Kristina, who honestly I was blown away by her. Like, she tells stories on her YouTube channel about like how her eyes change color going on a raw food diet, and a raw food diet is just no cooked foods, so salads and fruit and vegetables and things in their pure state, nothing cooked over 105 degrees. And I was just blown away by the sort of sheer radiance of this woman's lifestyle and everything about, she really did practice what she preached and looked like pure radiance.
Hey
Hey you guys, it's Kristina. Today I'm going to share with you my secret soulshine juice.
By the way, I still make this particular juice today. It's like, I contribute this to, is one of the most important things that I ever started doing, was making green juice, you know? It was the first gateway into health for me, health consciousness, and I'm just so grateful to fully Raw Kristina and the Life Regenerator and everybody on YouTube that puts themselves out there. And these people were pioneers in this movement. You know, I'm catching on to this pretty late in the game, but they realized this stuff early on, and thank God that they shared this with the world.
People are always asking me if I'm really this happy. Well, guess what? The answer is most definitely yes. Also assist you with weight loss if you are trying to do that. This magical bowl of green juice. This is like happiness in a bowl.
See?
Oh, damn! Check it out. Who's
Okay. So my influences on YouTube, they got me into juicing, and then I pretty much eventually got into raw foods and started to eat almost predominantly plant-based foods. And so this was like, at this point we're at, you know, after graduation in college, and I'm back home now. I'm working at the YMCA in my hometown, and what are we going to talk about next? What do you want to hear about next? So I eventually start to clear up all the problems in my life, and you know, I wean off of the pills for my gastroenteritis and whatever the hell it's called. I don't even know. My acid reflux, eventually to the point where I don't even need it anymore. I totally weaned myself off it. I eat predominantly a high raw, high carb, plant-based diet, and pretty much solved most of my health problems. Once I started eating more plant foods, my consciousness changed. I started to get into things like yoga. The first place I did yoga, I remember walking up the stairs. It's called Yoga for Everybody in my hometown of Fairfield, Connecticut. If you are ever there, they offer yoga teacher trainings in different styles. I did a training there with a school of yoga called Pranatan, which is Kripalu-inspired yoga, based out of Kripalu is based out of Stockbridge, Mass, out of the Kripalu Center, but two of the head instructors there over the years started their own training, and it's inspired by the same tradition. So they offer a lot of different events. And I just, you know, I walked up the stairs to this place, and there was this crystal hanging down, and most people would be able to walk right under it. I'm taller, I'm 6 feet tall, so my forehead kind of hit right on this crystal. And I remember walking up, and halfway up the stairs, just the vibe completely changed. I'm looking on the schedule here, and one of my friends who I did a training with, shout out to Adele, is looks like she's teaching at Yoga for Everybody now. That's cool. And so the first time I went there, I'm gonna just bring you to like the workshops page so you can get an idea of like what they offer. If you're ever in the area, you should definitely go, because anybody they have here, I guarantee you, it's going to be a life-changing event and experience for you. So please do check it out. And so I walk up the stairs, and I remember it was intro to yoga class, and I didn't know anything about yoga. Like, I remember this was right after the Sandy Hook shooting, and it was kind of fresh in everyone's mind, and I introduced myself to people in the class, and I didn't know that. I'd never been to a yoga class. I didn't know that that's like not what people do at a yoga class. Like, you don't introduce yourself to people at yoga usually. And then the teacher, he put it in such a beautiful way. He could have been like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, he's entering into people's space. They're just trying to sit before class starts and meditate and get themselves centered for class, and he's trying to introduce himself. But the teacher goes, I've never once seen anybody introduce themselves to the class, and I noticed that was happening here today, and he just went on about like how the community spirit was alive and everyone was kind of relearning to take care of each other and to looking at each other in a different way in the light of such an event that a tragic event that has the strange effect of bringing people together, because they realize that the human connection is the only thing that really matters. And so he actually commended us for introducing ourselves to each other. And I remember he could have been, he could have taken it in a negative way, but he just tried to remain positive about it. And like, that's cool. I noticed that you did that, and it was cool. It was different. It was awesome. I remember this guy, his name was Charlie. He had huge hands, like Brett Favre sized hands, man. This dude could probably palm a basketball, like Elijah. And I just remember he was sitting in a pose with his hands out. And he was just instructing us to breathe and to feel the layer of air closest to our skin, and how we're connected to this force that's greater than ourselves. How we're connected to each other through energy, through vibration. And all these things started to sink in, and I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace come over me. And ever since then, I was hooked. I knew that I was going to be a yoga teacher someday. Immediately. Eventually, I did start investigating what training am I going to do, and after about a year practicing yoga, and believe me, it takes years to really fully develop a yoga practice. It takes years of daily practice to really feel like you can tap in to your body and totally flow with it. At first, it's like your mind and your body and your soul, there's not that integration, but when that comes, it's a beautiful thing. So I signed up for the Pranatan School of Yoga. Devarshi Stephen Hartman and Preeti Robin Ross, two seasoned yoga teachers, decades of experience. It's their life. It's their life force. It's their livelihood. It's what they believe in. So this is, let's try to find the, so Google doesn't know quite how to spell it, but okay. Actually, this is a video compilation made by one of my fellow trainees, Marcy. Shout out to Marcy.
Flying high, you know how I feel.
And Pranatan was an incredible
Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel.
And it was amazing. The style of this instruction is, I cannot express to you that I learned more about myself through this 10-month training. It happened one weekend a month. It was one immersive weekend a month for about, over the course of 10 months, a 200-hour training it added up to. And I mean, they made me into, and I made myself through the guidance of this support system into a teacher, someone able to share my gifts with the world. And loving something is one thing, but being able to share it is another thing, being empowered to do so. So like, for example, we'd all show up and we'd sit in a circle, expecting like the teacher who was teaching the teachers to just basically take control and take over the show. But then they would just call on people randomly, like, Tim, take us through a centering and a little meditation to start us off today. And then they'd, point at Carrie, show us how to do Warrior 1, take us through, Warrior 2, Erica, boom, boom, boom. And they'd put us on the spot and they'd force us out of our comfort zone to just tap in, do it, say it, look around and experience the present moment, be focused on what's happening right now. And it was such a great immersive experience.
Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram Sita.
There's me.
Sita Ram Sita Ram.
Dozens of different yoga postures, but The emphasis was on how to language a yoga class, how to be your authentic self, how to find presence as a teacher, how to facilitate an experience for students. And we learned about the methodology behind yoga. We learned about the spiritual aspects and the tradition and the lineage. And we learned about the philosophy and the human anatomy and everything. It was great. If you are looking for a yoga teacher training, definitely reach out to me and I can tell you more about Pranatan, because as a Pranatan yoga teacher, I can tell you, I'd be very surprised if there was a more comprehensive and a better training out there. So, I started doing yoga and I started to really integrate how I was feeling in my body with how I was feeling in my mind, and I started meditation and all these things, and it just put me on this path. I have to say, yoga and green juice changed my life forever. I no longer have any of my health issues, and eventually I started watching movies like Cowspiracy and Earthlings, and like my initial approach to a plant-based lifestyle was like, it makes me feel the best, and when I feel the best, I can help the world most. Taking care of myself allows me to take care of others. If I feel good and I'm powerful in my own presence, I can't be helping people if I'm keeled over on a bed with acid reflux. So I eventually, started getting into the ethical reasons behind this, and it all started to add up. It's like, I started watching the Rich Roll podcast, and different people started coming into my life and influences that really drilled home, like, this is a beautiful lifestyle, plant-based lifestyle. So I'm going to put a link to some of the people and the influences and the documentaries and the things and all, even things I didn't mention that over the years have influenced me on my trajectory towards the state of health that I now enjoy, which is ever expanding, and I just can't wait to see where it takes me. It's basically now what I make, it's basically how I want to make my living, is as a yoga teacher and as a health influencer and as a motivator, as a communicator of these great arts and sciences of plant-based nutrition and yoga and self-improvement, spiritual growth, evolution, all these things. Thank you so much for watching this. I don't even know how long I've been going on about this, but thank you. And I hope you enjoyed my story. There's more to come. Let me know what you think. And maybe there's something that this triggered in you. They're like, oh, I went through that too. And I'd love to hear about how you relate to this story and even just your own personal take on the things that I talked about. All right. One full heart, never apart. So long.